So I'm going to tell you throughout this conversation whether you should rent and whether you should own. And you're going to be shocked that you're going to be able to afford it. So specifically, let's talk about three things. What does it cost? And kind of, I'm going to go through how do you buy a private jet? What's the difference between that? And there's a big difference. Then chartering, renting a private jet. And then third, I'm going to talk about the cost-effective ways to get it done without breaking the bank and actually breaking this way down. You're gonna leave this video and go, oh, I should have done this sooner. How much does it cost to own a private jet? So you're going to be shocked. So there's a jet, and then there is a whole different category of planes, right? Twin prop engines and other planes. I owned a King Air, a twin engine King Air. So when you look at a jet, jets are actually fairly cheap. You can get some for under $1 million. In fact, older models, I mean, it's based on the model, the year, how it was maintained, how many hours it's flown. So based on the use, right? The prior owner's use is going to help determine the price. So for example, I'll give you a horror story. I actually had a King Air, again, twin prop, which is different. So twin props and King Airs specifically are actually a more expensive plane. And let me just give you the short version. I'm going to give you a horror story. Jets can be cheaper, but their monthly maintenance is much higher. And a lot of jets are going to require two pilots, so you're going to have two salaries. And the fuel's different. I mean, there's a lot different about a jet than, say, a King Air. And there's a lot of other versions of airplanes. I'm just using those because I know those as great examples. My King Air, for example, costs more. It's a $3 million aircraft. But the monthly was only one pilot. It was very insurable, and it was about $40,000 to $50,000 a month maintenance. Jets can be somewhere between 60, 70, and a lot of them, especially if you need two pilots, are as high as $100,000 a month to run them. So it becomes a cost to purchase, and then it becomes a cost to maintain. And can you handle the monthly load? Can you handle the monthly cash flow and that nut? For me, when I got introduced to private aviation, my father had died. I was scrambling. It was New Year's Eve, and I needed to go home because it would be the last time I get to see him. So I called a client of mine who actually brokered private aircraft. And I said, I need a plane. I didn't care what it was. I didn't know the difference at that time, probably like a lot of you watching this video. He flew up a King Air from Arizona to Tahoe, got me and my family, took us to Nebraska. $29,000 was that flight to go home to see my father. After he passed, Beechcraft, smart company, they should sponsor my videos. They actually sent me a King Air, and they said, but there's one caveat. We're going to fly you home for free. Condolences of your father passing, but we're going to put a sales rep on the plane. So he's the one that really taught me about private aviation. So jets, they're great. I mean, private aviation in general is just great, and the tax benefits are extraordinary. But he really broke down like buying this King Air is $3 million. You put $1 million down. The benefit of buying that no one tells you about is the financing of private aircraft is very reasonable. The interest rates are really, really low. You think housing interest rates are low? Aviation interest rates are ridiculously low. At least mine were. And then the monthly to maintain, it's one pilot, it's very insurable, was great. It's 100% deduction to your corporation and 100% deduction in the depreciation schedule for you, depending on how you own it as a tax strategy. So owning is always a better route, in my opinion, given that I teach corporate structure and living corporate life and owning nothing, controlling everything, including how you want to travel. Now, what's the difference between owning and chartering? Well, chartering, I mean, you're between $13,000 to $3,000 an hour, typically. I just shared with you what it took to get, because I had to bring an empty plane up from Phoenix. You have to do what's called the dead leg. I had to pay for that, and then you got to pay, and then you got to pay to bring the whole thing back home. So chartering is more expensive. You can share to cut down the cost. You can share and lease it with other people. If you own a plane, there is a very different certification you have to get your plane into, and the insurance is different if you want to lease your plane out. I did it for a little while, then I took back my my lease option. Because I was flying so much during the week. I called it my minivan in the sky because I would just take me and my kids, the staff, and we would just go. And I didn't want to empty the plane and all my stuff for somebody else that was a stranger's stuff on my plane. And they didn't treat it as good as we did. So chartering is a great way to get introduced to private aviation. I think once you do it, it's amazing. There is no TSA line. You just walk right on the plane. Even when you fly internationally, you walk right off. Customs boards the plane. and you avoid a lot, and you don't have to pack so organized because there's no weight restrictions. I mean, there's weight restrictions of the overall plane, but not for the individuals. So if you're interested in learning more, you can tell I love having this conversation. And by the way, before I go to the final, I'm going to give you some more cost analysis. Please subscribe to my channel. Click that little bell, hit the notification button, and be here every day with me. And just plan your morning where you're going to get up, and the first thing you're going to do is listen to financial literacy. You're going to listen to my YouTube channel, and you're going to take some notes. And through the course of a year, I want you to become very financial literate. I want you to come closer into our community and really work with us. Let us help you become a millionaire. Like, financial literacy is not taught. If you have any questions, always put them in the comments. I have somebody there every day that is bringing those comments forward. It informs us of things that you want to know more about. So before I leave total private aviation, there's one thing I've also done that is an interesting step up to it, which is a helicopter. I know that wasn't what you probably came here to learn about. That can be a whole nother video. But I've also rented helicopters. Buying helicopters are really, really reasonable. I mean, you'd be shocked, but the distance, there's obviously a whole different dynamic. Let me give you what a 6-hour cross-country flight could look like in some exact costs. On a turboprop or a small private jet, you're going to pay between $7,800 and $18,000, 4 to 5 passengers. So when you break it down, you do a little ROI, and your corporation's paying, it's a total deduction. It's not that bad, especially for those of you that are used to flying first class. For a multi-size private jet, you're going to be $24,000 to $48,000 and up to 9 passengers. And then on a large private jet, $51,000 to $78,000, 14 to 15 passengers. So again, depending on what you need to do, depending on the amount of people and how you want to ROI that, the thing I got to put across all of it that no one talks enough about in private aviation, unless you're really in business, is the amount of business you get done. Because you can actually pull out tables, you can sit in a pod and actually get a lot of work done, which is how we used my plane when we did it. So if you're interested in more of this, you can always go up to my search bar, search for more information in different topics, again, where you want to learn more about money. But right now I want you to go to the link below. And I want you to click on the link. It's going to take you to a personality financial quiz. And you're going to be in 1 of 4 categories. That's going to bring you to an application. We're going to send you out an application. It's going to take you a few seconds to fill out. So you'll have a conversation with one of our folks, and maybe someday soon, you too will own a private plane.